speaking of animated characters, Disneyland is full of them, likes to market itself as the happiest place on earth. However, there is one unfortunate ride at Disneyland that, in spite of its massive popularity, remains extremely problematic. We're talking, of course, about Splash Mountain, which is based on the extremely racist 1946 Disney film Song of the South. And over the past few months, Splash Mountain has come under even more scrutiny than usual on social media. And recently, Disney announced they've been quietly working for the past few years on retheming the ride around the Princess and the Frog instead. So, what do you make of this news? Why do you think it's taken so long for a change like this to be enacted? And specifically, what do you think of them using the Princess and the Frog as its replacement? Markeia, let's start with you.
This is, just keeping with the category that we had before. This is about damn time. This goes underneath that, because something that I've noticed with people online saying, well, they'll be like, oh, what my syrup, what my pancake mix, what Disney, what's next? And it's like, well, people have been saying that this has been a problem for a while. Just something's being done now. And with Princess and the Frog replacing Splash Mountain, I'm all for it because it's still a really great water ride. But in big but here, because quarantine hits different, I need for there to be something extra to get me to go to a crowded theme park with other people. Having same old Splash Mountain is not going to do it. It's just not going to do it. Not in 2020, not in 2021, not in 2022, whenever we're getting out again. What will is having this beautiful, fantastical adventure of what happens after the final kiss with, Princess and the Frog. Like, I want to go on that journey. Take me there, retool that, and let's see some pastels and some greens. And then after that, I get to go to New Orleans, like right next door, and have some of the food that I'm craving after I just got off of whatever it's called, Tiana Splash Mountain. So yeah, bring it.
And we also have Smarcy in the chat saying, bring on the change, I say. Princess and the Frog needs some love. I mean, seriously, it's also a good point. Like, even from a business perspective, let alone a moral imperative or just being a humanist company, like Disney is all about marketing its princesses to then sell merchandise with fan favorite characters. You already have Princess Tiana walking around the park, like making children's days even better. Why not give her her own ride? What are you doing?
Yeah, no, I think this is perfect timing. I think especially with the Black Lives Matter movement that's happening right now. I think with everything that the country is experiencing and undergoing, it's the perfect opportunity to kind of revisit and reshape the image that the Disney Corporation's kind of always been bringing off. And I'm excited to see a Princess and the Frog ride. I think it's actually one of the more historic landmark Disney movies for the simple fact that it's the last Disney princess to ever be 2D animation. So then they could play into that. I think that it's an important piece of history that just has kind of gotten overlooked because of, the way Disney has kind of shifted directions over the past few years. But now that, they already had a hard time. I felt like they've always had a hard time promoting like Pocahontas because it's such a it's kind of a down the middle kind of character in terms of like representation. It is great for Native American representation, but it's also a really terrible and tragic real life story. So I'm glad they're finally using this opportunity to capitalize off of some real life, real life issues and some real life race and representation that wasn't represented before.
Exactly, because they've also over the years still been making money off of Song of the South, even though they're not putting it on Disney Plus. It's been unavailable widely for years as a film, but through this attraction, through its music, they're still generating revenue. This attraction opened way back in 1989. So when you see companies like Warner Brothers, for example, putting warnings in front of old Looney Tunes cartoons to indicate that it represents outdated notions of race, sexuality, gender, etc., and you don't see Disney doing something similar, do you think that's a misstep on their part? Is that something they should do? Should a movie like Song of the South be available with caveats? Or do you think it's just something they should just kind of, are they right to try and just sweep this under the rug? Riley, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think that the thing with Song of the South is that it has always had critics since the day it came out. And a lot of those critics were silenced from the day it was. Like, you know, there's a lot of stories behind it about Walt trying to say it was communists conspiring against him instead of actually listening to Black voices at the time saying what was wrong with it. So I think that there's more to Song of the South than just the racial stereotypes. Like, I think even the history of the way the movie has been promoted and released and stuff like that. So I don't know if at any point, like I don't feel good about the idea of Disney making money off of it now, because like it was, even when it was being made, it was being said like, don't make this movie. So it's not an example like the one of those ones where it was just like everyone was making these cartoons and that's what we were doing back then, even though it was objectively wrong then as it is now. I think Song of the South has like a whole other like beast to it, and I think that's why it should just be like, I would love to see a Black filmmaker and a Black voice take the actual like Brer Rabbit stories like and make a new, completely non-Song of the South, not Joel Chandler Harris. Because that's the thing, Joel Chandler Harris, who wrote the books that like the newspaper stories that this movie was based off of, also stole his stories from Black voices. So I think that Song of the South should just be taken away completely, and no white people should make any money off of it whatsoever. And then these actual like African like folktales should be given to Black voices to tell those stories.
Yeah, you know how they have the Disney vault? They need the Disney trash can, and that's where that belongs.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
Well,
We'll just take the incinerator from Toy Story 3 and then just put the cellulite there.
Well, that really raises the big question for me, is that they have other films in their catalog that they do celebrate and they do cherish, that also have some problematic stuff. I mean, to me, the most prevalent example I could think of is Dumbo, which they just made a live action movie off of, but they used the opportunity to do live action Dumbo to kind of revise and recontextualize, I guess, the whole story. But at the end of the day, there were the crows in the original Dumbo. There was a literal song where there are slaves like singing like about how much they love being slaves. So there's tough stuff throughout all of Disney's filmography. And I mean, I don't think bringing back Song of the South would be the right decision. But I think on top of that, they should start looking at all of their films, including like the Aristocats and all of them, and just put like warnings in front of them and really show the audience that what they were doing in the past was not okay.
Yeah, right now they're just putting like one line at the bottom of the descriptions of those files in Disney Plus, and I don't think that's enough. I think there should be more to it than that.
And for everyone who kind of like decries that as like PC culture or censorship online, there's nothing wrong with learning about and presenting a film in a historical context and presenting that context to viewers. I mean, you would learn about all of this stuff that we talked about in like a film history class. So why not present that to a casual viewer at home as well?
Yeah, we watched Birth of a Nation in my college history class, and there was no moment where my professor was like, this is a good story. Like, it was very much like, this is a very, very racist film, but it's a part of history, and that's why we're talking about it. Like, real quickly on Splash Mountain, before we move on from that, I just want to point out, like, there's no, like, argument for Splash Mountain that you're preserving anything with it, too, because the ride it basically is like a Frankenstein of a ride to begin with. It was Eisner wanted a thrill ride. They needed something to do with the pieces from America Sings. So they just shoved those into the ride. It's named Splash Mountain to promote the Tom Hanks, like Daryl Hannah mermaid movie. That's not even like relevant at all anymore. And they're like, let's do something with Zippity Doo-Dah. So like, it's not like this ride has some historical context that needs to be preserved. Like, yeah, toss the whole thing out. Like Kia said, just bring us this awesome Tiana themed splash ride. New Orleans Square is right there. Why would you not already celebrate the movie that's already set in New Orleans? And give us a Tiana's Place restaurant while we're at it too, so that we can like enjoy the food that she cooked in the movie and make it like, take that soup restaurant right across the like right next to Rivers of America. Keep selling that soup and have it be Tiana's Place.
Yeah, let's have brunch with Tiana. I want that.
Yes,
Yeah, we have that already.
Period. I just miss brunch and friends and the outside world and the before time.